Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson. And today I'm joined by William Branum, retired Navy SEAL and SEAL sniper instructor. William is the founder of Naked Warrior Recovery, a CBD company that's focusing on ending veteran suicide. He's an awesome public speaker and coach and shares his 5 SEAL secrets, drawing from his 26 years of experience in the SEAL teams to train high performers and CEOs. But don't worry, that also directly translates to our conversation about wellness today. In today's conversation, we discuss how William's experience and knowledge can directly translate to facilitate healing. We explore the ins and outs of CBD, including how it can set the stage for healing and how to know if you're using the best products. William also shares how his get naked mindset is essential to develop for true wellness. William, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Stoked to be here.
I am excited for our conversation. I just know already it's going to be amazing. I want to start a little bit with story. I'd love for you to share. You have an incredible journey, and you didn't just wake up one morning and decide you were going to, be this incredible coach and speaker and start a CBD company. So share your journey with us.
I'm not even sure where to start. Let's see. If I go back in time, rewind a little bit, we'll go back to the summer of my 11th to 12th grade of high school. I grew up in a little town outside of Meridian, Mississippi, was very poor, had sort of a mediocre mindset. However, like very poor, like free lunches all through, first through 12th grade poor. But I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scout organization I was a part of paid for me to go to this national jamboree. It happens every 4 years. I went to the event. I met a kid there. He had this vision of, when he graduated from high school, he wanted to go to the Naval Academy. He wanted to fly F-14 Tomcats like Top Gun, and he wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And I was like, dude, what's a Navy SEAL? I have no idea what that is, because back then I didn't have cable. There was like 4 channels on my television. There was certainly no internet. I am very young, but the internet's not that old.
Young as he looks, ladies and gentlemen, because I have asked. And I almost fell off my stool. And nobody was talking about Navy SEALs either.
No, there were no books. There was nothing. Maybe a couple of books from like Vietnam era, but not a lot out there. And, there were, people I knew about Green Berets because John Wayne was a Green Beret in Vietnam, at least in the movie Green Berets. John Rambo was he was an Army Ranger. So I knew about that. I had heard about, Marine Corps scout snipers, maybe Marine Recon. I'd heard of those things. I'm like, so, and I always knew I wanted to be part of some sort of small elite military organization. I just didn't know what that was. And so this kid was like, yeah, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And I'm like, what's that? And he explained it's the hardest military training in the world. They jump out of airplanes, they blow stuff up, they do all sorts of cool stuff. And I was like, yeah, how do I sign up for that? And so I came back from that trip, and the Navy recruiter calls my house because that's what they do. They're like cold calling, like trying to get their quota. And I'm like, and almost every other man in my family has been in the Navy. And I swore I would never join the Navy. Like, there's no reason for me to join the Navy. I don't want to be part of one of those big gray things that float out there in the ocean. So the Navy recruiter calls, and my initial thought was like, no way. But wait, I want to be a Navy SEAL. So I shared that with him. I'm like, I want to go to the Naval Academy. I want to fly F-14 Tomcats. I want to be a Navy SEAL. He's like, okay, why don't you come on down here to the recruiting station and let's have a conversation. So he showed me this really cheesy movie about Navy SEALs. And I was like, where do I sign? How do I, let's go. Like, do I have to graduate high school? Can I start right now? I don't like, and so I joined the Navy. With the full intent of going to the Naval Academy, of flying F-14 Tomcats and becoming a Navy SEAL. I guess 1 out of 3 is not bad. So I eventually became a SEAL.
The hardest was
right? Whatever. This is, I'm a low performer over here. 1 out of 3. Let's see.
Mindset.
Right. Exactly. So if I had a better mindset, maybe I would have, made it to the Naval Academy and flown F-14 Tomcats. But they did tell me when I joined the Navy that my hearing was so bad that I wouldn't be able to fly jets. Because apparently you have to have good hearing. I don't know. But it hasn't gotten any better since then. So I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
So I eventually became a SEAL. I spent 26 years in the Navy, serving in the SEAL teams, and retired in 2018. When I retired, when I went into the military, I had, a vision of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. Then I became, got in the SEAL teams, and I had a purpose, I had a mission, and I had a team. And the day that I retired from the Navy, I felt like I had lost everything. I equate it to that Avengers movie where Thanos snaps his fingers and the world, like the universe's population vanishes. And that's the way I felt. I was lost. I was like, I have a bunch of baggage from my time, both in the military and also some not so awesome relationships that I've been a part of. I call it baggage. And so the way I would like turn down this noise in my head is I would pretty much just drink myself to sleep at night. I had heard of this molecule called CBD, but I was afraid to try it because I am a child of Nancy Reagan's war on drugs. Just say no, even though I am very young over here. Just keep coming back.
Young is an attitude, William. You are young, and I have told you off. I have thanked you off air, but on air, I would like to thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Incredible.
But so I tried CBD finally, and I had it. I didn't notice anything. I didn't feel anything. It wasn't like, you drinking alcohol or anything like that. Just felt, I had less noise in my head. So I was able to drink less, and some of the pains in my body were just less bad. And so I was like, well, maybe the CBD thing has, it's a good thing. And it was still barely legal federally. So I think I tried it for the first time April of 2019, and it became legal like December 20th, 2018. When hemp became legal, federally, right, nationally, whatever. And so I ran out of that bottle that a buddy of mine actually gave me. And I started, this noise started percolating, like more noise in my head, more pains in my body that I didn't even notice had left, or they just became less sharp, more dull. It started coming back, and I was like, well, maybe it was CBD. So I'll try a different brand. I had similar results. And now I'm like, oh, maybe CBD is my new mission, my new purpose, my new whatever. And so I went to this business conference. I met a girl actually from Colorado who was in the CBD industry. And I was like, so she asked, like, how do you market CBD? Like, because I can't run ads, I can't do any of the traditional stuff. Excuse me. And they were like, get athletes to say how great it is and things like that. And so all I could think of is like, you're the CBD girl. Maybe you're my next, like, who I need to partner with in some way. And so I chased her down. That sounds a little weird, but I followed her. That also sounds weird.
You're a big guy.
And I was like, and I cornered her. That also sounds weird. Maybe something like that.
Poor
I don't
girl.
Exactly how it happened. But I was like, hey, you're the CBD girl, right? She was like, yeah. And I said, I think I want to do CBD. And really what I wanted is for her to hire me. Like, hire me. Maybe this is my new purpose, my new mission, my new whatever. And she was like, well, do you want to do A to B, B to B, or B to C? And I was like, I don't know what those letters mean. I want to do C, B, D. Did you not hear me in the first place? So she laughed and said, well, why don't you just start your own CBD company? And I said, I don't know how to do that. And she leaned in and she said, you are a Navy SEAL. Mm-hmm. You can figure it out. So I asked her politely for my man card back. She politely gave it back to me. And I went home and I Googled how to start a CBD company. And I found out very quickly that it's a really corrupt, very dirty industry. There's a lot of bad actors out there, a lot of like, let's get rich quick. Gas station CBD, probably not something you want to consume. It's kind of like gas station sushi. You probably don't want to eat that either, unless you live in Hawaii.
Hot dogs.
Like we have good sushi in 7-Eleven here, but I wouldn't do it anywhere else in the world just because we have the ocean right there. So anyway, I started a CBD company called Naked Warrior Recovery. And then I was like, I started it March 1st of 2020. Some other thing happened right around that same time. I can't remember what it was, but there was some weird stuff happening. And people were like, oh my God, how do I So one of my
happy anniversary, by the way.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't even realize that. Look at that, just like
last week. Yep.
that. I should have had a sale. Maybe I'll have a sale just because of that. I forgot where I was going with the story. So, being in the SEAL teams, being in the military my entire life, I have no idea how to like run a company. I mean, I kind of do. There's not really that much difference between, leading men and doing things in the military. Like you get a budget, you get all these things. Well, I didn't know how to like market my product. And I was also still in the mindset of don't tell anyone what you do, who you are, or anything like that, because that's just what they beat into us. Do not advertise the nature of your work, all this other stuff.
Right.
And so eventually I got over that. And
in
so
a
now
big way.
But it took a lot to do that. And it's funny, like people that are outside, they don't understand that. It's beaten into us. Do not advertise the nature of your work. Don't tell anyone what you do. Terrorists will come and kill you and your family and whatever. So,
and I was actually literally
it,
just thinking about this yesterday, knowing our conversation was going to happen today. That is exactly what was going through my head is like, he's just puts it all out there. Is that safe? Is that okay?
Yeah, I do live on a rock in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's a lot of work to get here. And I travel all the time. So
if they can find you.
Right. Let's see what else. So I didn't, and I recognized that I didn't know how to market. And then a friend of mine who was doing business coaching he had a hey, 7 days to whatever, 7-day ignition mastermind, something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but I was like, yes, here's my money. I want to get on the calls. And so he, taught me how to do some marketing and how to do some sales and things like that, because I had zero clue. And then that just perpetuated me into more other coaching programs and other coaches. And through that process of learning, I have a PhD, a public high school diploma, so I'm very smart. So,
we're in the same boat,
right? So, and that's when I was my last 3 years in the Navy, I was running research and development for our command, and I would be in rooms with actual scientists and PhDs and super nerds. And they would go around the room telling, everyone would introduce themselves and tell their background and whatever. And it would come to me and I was like, yeah, I have a PhD, also a public high school diploma. So if I ask dumb questions, hopefully you guys are okay with that. And so that always gave me a little more street cred when I'm in the room because of the operational side and my experience there. But so I started coaching or I started with coaches. And one of my coaches was like, bro, why don't you coach? I'm like, well, I don't have anything to say. Like, who am I going to coach? I'm like, what do I know?
To yourself?
Right? Exactly. And I'm like, and he's like, bro, you got a lot to sell. You got a lot to say. You got a lot of whatever. And I'm like, okay, you say. And also, one of my other coaches said, you need to get on podcasts. You need to get on the biggest podcast you can get on. Like, that's how you're going to grow your brand, since you can't run ads or anything like that. So over in the last 24 months, I've been on over 400 podcasts. I have also
way to make me feel not at all special, William. Thank you.
I'm honored to be here. Honored. I will not forget this podcast. I mean, I started going back through and I'm like, oh, I was on that pod. I don't even know who that person was. And
right.
I've started to make a list
I've had that as well. Asked me actually about a doctor yesterday, and I'm like, oh, I really like her. And then luckily didn't say it out loud, but I was like, did she do my podcast? I don't remember.
Right. So, but I will not forget this one for sure.
Well, you will stand out in the crowd. So,
right. And also one of my coaches, and I got where I am because I hired coaches. I hired people to help collapse time to get me where I want to be and to help accelerate where I want to go. And so one of my coaches was like, the same one who was like, you should be coaching. He also said, everyone in this group should have what he called a signature presentation. It's basically something, it's your TED Talk. It's something you can do you're an expert in, you can share for 10 minutes, or you can share it for an hour and a half. And so I created, the Get Naked mindset, or 5 secrets to think like a Navy SEAL. And so now I give that presentation from stage internationally, and I also do coaching. So all the things that I do right now are all the things that I said, several years ago that I would never, ever, 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 never, ever do. I coach people or advise, consult, whatever the word of the day is. So coaching it's starting to become a dirty word. And as I'm like entering into the space, I'm like, oh my God.
It's just because anybody can say they're a coach without anything.
And they have no experience or any. Yeah. What have you done? I even asked myself, like, what have I done?
A lot.
So now I do consulting, coaching, advising, whatever you want to call it. I do sales. I was like, I will never do sales. I'm not a salesman. I love selling. I love helping people.
Right.
And I love getting, and I would say I'm never going to be one of those people standing on stage, like doing motivational speaking, and now I do that. So everything I said I would never do once upon a time is everything that I do now. Grow like, and being and writing a book. I'm also writing a book. I'm like, I don't have anything. So I'm actually writing two to three books. I have one that I'm almost done right now. I'm co-authoring one. I have another one that's in the hopper once I finish the first one, the co-author book. And then I'll probably do some sort of like planner of sorts. So there's three right there, all things that I said I would never do. So I guess the moral of the story is never say never, because you never know if you're ambitious in any way, for sure, leave opportunity open and don't close your mind to anything.
I love that. And obviously we couldn't have different journeys or different histories and different lives. But I think one of the things that I so appreciate about you that I can relate to is, here's something that helped change your life for the better. And now your life is about getting that out to people. And that's exactly why I do what I do. I took years to figure out how to reverse my autoimmune symptoms. And I love helping people expedite that process and to be a resource for them. And so I want to circle back to a couple points, because listeners might still be like, okay, this guy sounds really cool. Why is he on Julie's podcast? Right?
Because it's Julie, of course.
Well, and also, a full disclosure, I met William a few weeks ago, and I made the brilliant comment at one point, a couple days in, of like, you are a brave man, and then had to laugh and was like, oh, I guess you were trained for this, because 7 of us shared a house. 6 of us were women. Most of us didn't know each other. And we had a blast. And so anybody who can roll with that in such good spirit is okay in my book. So I wanted to touch on, kind of highlight a little bit of your pain points. Most of us can't relate to, maybe we can relate to noise in the brain, and anybody listening would probably rightly assume whatever noise is going on for them. It's, not like all of a sudden you were a Navy SEAL and now you're retired and your whole world, like you said, just kind of evaporated. But what you kind of really glossed over was you had a lot of chronic physical pain. And you said you were drinking yourself to sleep, but you also had sleep challenges.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those, doesn't really matter how your chronic pain came from the abuse your body took, because you were.
And apparently I still abuse it, just in a different way.
So I want to touch on one of the things that you said is so brilliant, because I think it's just human nature. You noticed CBD was helping a little bit with the noise and a little, maybe a little bit with the pain, but you didn't really notice just how much until you stopped and it returned. Like we just assimilate, we do, and we tolerate. And so I want to just highlight that, these are things that everybody with autoimmunity can relate to. I know, you had anxiety, depression. I mean, anybody with chronic illness has, I'm not saying, diagnosable depression, but we've all experienced kind of that realm of, mental health concerns, anxiety, if you don't want to say depression, some kind of a mood impact. And then, that physical, the pain and the not sleeping, I think are things that we can all relate to. And so for everybody listening, that was one of the main reasons, because I adore William and will happily talk to him, but I can call him on the phone. We don't have to share this with you. And I think I shared with you when we were together, CBD was a really big part of my healing journey. I was still on many prescriptions, including painkillers, muscle relaxers, and high quality, and we're going to talk about this, high quality CBD. Really, really, not only did it reduce my pain and help with that, I'm a biohacker, I'm a nerd, I'm showing my Aura ring. I was already tracking my sleep when I started with this. And what I noticed was at the right dose, all of a sudden I was getting my deep sleep doubled. It really impacted for me the quality of my sleep. I wasn't somebody who had problems falling asleep. I could sleep 13 hours and wake up exhausted. I woke up a lot because of pain. But so CBD, people they need to know about it. And that's one of the reasons I love your message, because, and we're going to talk a little bit too about, not everybody may understand why you can't really market in the classic ways, because it's illegal, right? So what do you mean?
According to the U.S. government, it's legal, but according to like every other social media platform, it's not. So
Facebook and so yeah, and we share that similarity as well. I got videos pulled down because I made the statement, the body can heal, which is apparently just as offensive as CBD. So, so we need to get creative and have conversations like this. And so for listeners that were scratching their heads, other than like, wow, this is cool. This is why I wanted William to come on today.
I even had TikTok. I showed it's a transdermal pen product that I carry, and I didn't even show applying it. I just showed like, this is one of the fastest ways to get CBD into your body, and talked about it. And they like blocked that video. I was like, it's not, I didn't do anything. I didn't even like show you how to use it. Right. Exactly. It's like illicit something like when TikTok does that. Are you kidding me? All the crazy stuff that's on
Oh my gosh. And misinformation and yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It was crazy. You probably had a question or something, but I
wanted to kind of underscore for listeners that although CBD is effective and legal, that, at least in avenues like social media, it really, you get shut down if you try to market. And
it's interesting because it's a very saturated market. Like I saw a stat a week or two ago. I'm going to mess up the number, but I'm going to say there's like over 340,000 CBD companies in the United States.
Well, and that's, when I was first discussing CBD with clients, they would say, oh, I tried it. And, well, what'd you try? Oh, my friend gave me and I'm like, oh, I don't know what and maybe sometimes it was a good product. I don't know. But let's talk about quality, because it is so important. And full disclosure, I have tried your products and I love them, because I know you see me placing orders. I'm like, I hand them out like candy. I'm like, try this, try that. And I live in Colorado, so I have access to high quality and through functional medicine, I have access to high quality, but the attention to detail that you've put into your products, I believe, makes them a step above and just more effective. Like, they're just really effective. So far, I haven't found anybody I've given your products to that hasn't really been like, wow, this is different than any other CBD I've tried before. So let's talk a little bit about sourcing and quality, other than I can, and I'm not an affiliate, but I'm telling y'all, if you're listening and you're still listening and you're interested in this conversation, the Naked Warrior products are really top notch. So
thank you very much.
Yeah.
So before we talk about quality, I just want to talk about how you feel, or like, just like you said, like someone says, I tried CBD and it didn't really work for me.
Right.
We take vitamin C all the time. Do you know if that's working for you?
Right.
Not really.
Right.
Like, there's so many things that we consumed. Is it really working for you? I don't know. Maybe. And so a lot of times, just like with me, like I took that first bottle of CBD, I didn't notice anything happening.
Right.
And it was over time that like my sleep got better, the noise in my head went down, the pains in my body got less, but I didn't notice it until I stopped taking it.
Right.
And I started like the noise started creeping back in, the pains that I was like, oh, I haven't felt that pain for like weeks. Oh, maybe it was a CBD. And then, I let it kind of grow and like, okay, let's try another brand of CBD. And then I had similar results. So I can tell you without a doubt that it positively impacted my quality of life. But it wasn't something that I noticed, like take the product and you notice something right away. It's not like, you have a headache and you take ibuprofen. It doesn't work like that. It works on different pathways. It works on chronic inflammation. It works on the endocannabinoid system that's in your body, which is a giant neuroreceptor system that is connected to every other system in your body. So the reason that people have come out and said like, well, this cured my whatever, it cured my cancer. CBD doesn't cure anything. It helps reduce chronic inflammation. It helps bring your endocannabinoid system back into homeostasis, back into balance, which helps bring all the other systems back into balance so that your body can heal itself like it's supposed to, which is really the goal at the end of the day. Like get away from big pharma and things like that. There are natural things out there. And hemp or marijuana or whatever you want to call it was legal until about 100 years ago.
Right.
And we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but it has been used for thousands of years as medicine. And then, there was, anyway. So
we could get into the whole.
we can talk about it or not.
I never knew you to be so politically correct, William. But that would take us another hour if we get.
It would take us a long time, right?
We have the same conversation. It comes up all the time when we're talking about, the food industry, the whole pharmaceutical power
right. house.
But I love so many things that you said, especially because you're so educated about this and I am not. And you just described exactly the only way I've been able to describe to people, the anti-inflammatory properties combined with this balancing, because I've had people say to me, well, how can it do all those things? Or, what if I need something different than somebody else? And it's the balance in the endocannabinoid system that works like, feels like magic. Right. If somebody's saying, well, how can it do this and that and that and this? And I like that you highlighted, it's not like, take an ibuprofen, headache's gone necessarily. But I will say, and maybe we're not talking apples to apples, I think because I live in Colorado and because it was even, it was legal here before it was legal federally, there was all kinds of CBD stuff popping up. And when I would ask people, well, how much actual CBD was in your product, they'd say, I don't know. I have no idea. And that's where I get into that quality of, what else is in the product? Because are you driving inflammation with crappy ingredients and so that's where I'm like, to you, it's obvious that there's a certain quality standard and we just need to kind of give it a chance to notice what it's doing.
And so just to kind of address the quality, when I first started investigating CBD, I found out, that the industry is very dirty. The FDA would go out and do spot checks and they would find that, most of the products on the market, it's been a while. So the industry has cleaned up quite a bit, but it's still out there. The FDA would go out and they would do spot checks and they would find that more than 70% of the products either didn't have CBD in them. They didn't have the CBD they said they had in them. They had high levels of THC that was outside the legal limit of 0.3%. They had high levels of heavy metal, mercury, arsenic, pesticides, herbicides, things like that. So it was like, if you're putting something in your body to be a medicine, and I'm using air quotes here, medicine, right. I'm not making medical claims, but if you're putting something into your body to be a medicine
to feel better,
right. You don't want to be putting a bunch of poison in your body at the same time.
Right.
So when I went out and found my suppliers, I found not great suppliers, and I found the highest quality suppliers. And I still use these same suppliers today because these are the suppliers that really drove the industry in the direction that it has gone to help clean itself up. And so, one of the distinctions, even the biggest names of CBD that you see out there today, they were not doing what we were doing. And that was, you harvest the plant. Ooh, we lost power yesterday. We couldn't lose power today. We got big winds. I don't know what's going on here in Hawaii, but a lot of rain and big winds. So no hurricanes.
Sounds like an island.
Right? It's tropical paradise. So what we found is so what we would do is we would harvest the plant and then extract the oil and send that oil off for independent third-party lab to be tested to make sure, it doesn't have any mold or heavy metals or anything like that you don't want to be putting in your body. Then we would run it through the manufacturing process, turn it into a tincture, turn it into a soft gel, turn it into an energy drink powder, turn it into a topical, and then we would test it again. Everyone was testing on the front end.
Right.
No one was testing on the back end. So they never knew what was actually in the product that they were
final
selling.
Product. Yeah.
And, when I first started, I would go around and I'm talking about CBD, and it was kind of popular and people were buying from different places. And they were like, well, what do you think about this brand or that brand? I'm like, okay, well, send me their website. And so I would look and, I get a little lazy sometimes, but we put a QR code on every one of our products. So you can go and scan that QR code, look at the lot number. We test every single lot that comes out. And so I would look at websites. Difference. I would look at websites and they would have like a certificate of testing
5 years
on there. And it was like not even a product that they carried. It was like something they did. We test every single batch that comes out, every single lot that comes out. And we post that on the website, and we have that. I don't always post it on my website, but it is posted on the big website that has like what all of the testing. So you just scan the QR code and put the lot number of the product that you're using, and you can see exactly what's in it, how much CBD is in it. We usually put about 10% more than what we say on the label, just because more is not always better, but more is not going to hurt you. For sure, you don't want to have less. And, also looking for all those toxins, to make sure there was no contamination in the manufacturing process, because that has happened. And we only caught it because it happened. Like we tested and we're like, hey, we got to fix this. This is not okay. So,
yeah.
Right. So, and nobody else was doing that.
Yeah.
And so the industry has started to shift to do that second test of the final product, just to say specifically like, hey, this has what we say it has in it. Yeah, and to show you the quality that we're trying to deliver.
And so I would say if listeners, for whatever strange reason, don't want to check out the Naked Warrior products, if at some point you're interested in testing out CBD in your body, that's to me the gold standard. You've got to look for the testing, and you've got to look for the final product testing. Yeah, and that's 100%. Why 3-5 years ago, even though it was available here, it was a crapshoot. People didn't know what they were getting, and so it's I think one of the reasons why also your products are, if I have this right, and I believe we've discussed it, I think, and it seems to be my experience, your products are consistent. In other words, it's not CBD per container, and each gummy, say if somebody gets the gummies, each gummy, one gummy may have none and one gummy has all of it, which is a very common thing here, even going to a dispensary that sells medical marijuana, the products that are in there, it's per container. So you're not, there's no consistent dosing, serving size, consistent serving size.
Right. And so, and that's the way that they're tested. They're tested, it's just a random containers are pulled out. They're sent off to the lab and they're randomly tested.
Yeah.
And that's how we show the consistency. That's how we measure what we have in the product.
Yeah. Which is amazing. I think I know the answer. I think the main answer is yes, but different. So you have a variety of products, different applications, different delivery systems. Are there some that are better for certain things. Like you mentioned, the pen is the fastest acting. Like
so the transdermal pen, the M60, it's the quickest way to get CBD into your body outside of an enema. An enema is number one. It's the quickest way to get it into your blood. A vape is number two. We were looking at doing vapes, but there's too much weird stuff going on with that. So
yeah,
we stepped away from it.
Good.
Yeah, so we stepped away from that. The transdermal pen is number three, and a tincture under the tongue is number four.
Yeah.
Now, so the soft gels that we produce, they have a nano emulsion. We use a nano emulsion technology. It's a pharmaceutical grade emulsifier. So basically, let's just say like a drop of CBD is like the size of a basketball. It's very hard to get that oil into this body of water that we carry around with us.
Right.
So what we do is we agitate the oil, and then we add this emulsifier. So it basically takes that basketball size drop of oil and turns it into like 10,000 golf balls.
Little drops.
So it's easier for the body to absorb the nano emulsion soft gels into the system, to help it cross the blood-brain barrier. We use MC2 oil to help it cross the blood-brain barrier on the delivery system. So the other thing with the transdermal pen is it passes that first pass metabolism. So it's really microdosing CBD, not like in the mushroom kind or psilocybin kind of
right.
microdose. Not that it's interesting. In the last week, I've had 3 very different conversations about that, all positive. I'm like,
right.
Maybe that's another thing that I'll be looking
about.
At.
Right.
Not what we're talking about today. So yeah. So the pen delivers a exact measurement of 4 milligrams of CBD, and it goes, straight into the bloodstream, which is really about what you get when you take 25 milligrams of CBD.
Okay.
So interesting. So it bypasses that first pass metabolism. So it goes straight into the bloodstream, and it doesn't get lost in other places of the body or just kind of get passed through.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
But it's all, they're all kind of in some of the best feedback I've gotten with the transdermal pen isn't like, oh, my recovery is better or anything like that. It's like more like my carpal tunnel says, or my arthritis in my hand or things like that, it's like completely wipes it out when I use that product. And I'm like, awesome. That's fantastic.
It is awesome. It's incredible. It really is. And I seeing you move around, you don't look like a guy who, people would say, probably, I hope you can say, they'd say the same about me. You don't look like somebody who lived with chronic pain for a long time. Right. And so, the whole purpose of this podcast is because the body can heal. We can heal. There are tools, there are, programs, structures, but we have to support the body. And the CBD is such a good, in my opinion, I think it's possible to heal without CBD most times. I think there 100%. Are some things, but again, we're all about like I don't know. It took me like 6 years to go from full of pain to pain free. And why would you want to spend all that time? Why not shortcut with something your body really has and needs? Anyway,
you don't always know what's working and what's not. I just say that CBD is a modality.
Yeah,
it's a tool in
it's
the
a
toolbox.
Really effective modality. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I love it. I want to talk about, I wanted to get into a little bit of the quality conversation and, make sure listeners really understand we are talking about something that reduces inflammation and balances systems to allow for healing. But now I want to flip the conversation a little bit because I want to know, I don't want people to be intimidated. You're this Navy SEAL, you do this like incredible training. You have, this is you're calm because we can't move around a lot, but what is the get naked mindset? And, how can we benefit from understanding that?
So I was going to throw some jokes out there, and I stopped myself.
And I should have worn my hat.
Sure right. So Get Naked it's about taking that armor off, that ego that you carry around, that mask that you're hiding behind, whatever it is. Take that off, and so that you can find. And this was for me how it worked for me. So you can find the healing that you actually need. If you're so. In the SEAL teams, we go into combat, we go into harm's way. We put this, we put our body armor on, we put our helmet on, and we go out there and we take the fight to the enemy. And sometimes that armor saves our life, and we're grateful that we have it. And we come back, we take that armor off, we hit the showers, we rest, we recover, we get ready for the next mission. In life, we never do that. We pain is cumulative. Mm-hmm. So if I were to like tap you in the arm for like an hour, you're going to be like, that's really bugging me. If I keep doing it for a week, you're like, it's going to leave a bruise. And over time, I stop tapping you in the arm, and all of a sudden, you have this bruise, and a gentle spring breeze blows your clothes and it hits your arm. And you're like, oh my God, that's so much pain. And that's just sort of the way that, like, it wasn't like big trauma. It was like over and over repetitive trauma. And so we end up like putting up this shield, and that trauma can come from it can come from like, a disgruntled coworker or a family member or whatever it is. And you just like always feel like you're like under attack. And so you put up this shield. And so Get Naked is about taking that wall down, exposing yourself, becoming vulnerable so you can find the healing that you need. So that was where it started. But, when I went back and I talked earlier about, one of my coaches saying everyone here needs a signature presentation. I was like, okay, well, what if I take Naked and turn it into an acronym? And so I turned Naked into an acronym, and the acronym stands for: the N is for never quit. The A is accept failure. The K is to kill mediocrity. The E is expose your fears, and the D is do the work. And so, and I, and this is a presentation I give from stage, and I talk about this as 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL. And I, explain each letter of the acronym and what it means and how you can apply this to your life using lessons that I learned from the SEAL teams, from SEAL training and things like that.
And so we haven't talked about this before. And so I'm really excited that I was right. And in that this applies to all of us, and B, especially our listeners, because we have to put that armor down, that shield down, the wall, whatever you want to call it, to heal. And everybody has one. And I love that you brought up, you mentioned the coworker that we may not know. It could be trauma from childhood. It doesn't have to be capital T. I'm a combat vet trauma. It can be all those little things that become our belief systems that stack that wall, raise that shield up. And it is sometimes the hardest part of a healing journey. And also,
you said it earlier.
Essential.
You said it. You said it earlier. Like we are resilient. I forgot the language you used, but it was like we adapt. We get used to pain. We get used to putting that shield up, or creating more of a barrier between us and things that we assume are going to maybe hurt us. And so that's what really Get Naked is about. It's like, recognize it first and then take it down. But sometimes you have to be brave enough to do that. I was not brave enough pretty much my entire adult life. Actually, even before that, as a child, I was not brave enough to do anything like that. I was like, I never show weakness ever, the end. And it wasn't until I had a leader in the SEAL teams where he let everyone know, like, I looked up to him tremendously. And one day he said, yeah, I'm having some trouble over here. I need some help. So I'm going to go find some help. And I was like, oh, he's going to get eaten alive. And no one like really went after him for weakness or anything else. And I was like, so he actually gained more respect because he said, hey, I need help.
Right.
And then I retired, and I was still like, I don't need help. I'm a man. I'm tough. Whatever nonsense that we tell ourselves. Yeah, let's get my man card back. So so I remember I was on Clubhouse, if that platform is still around.
I'm not sure.
And right in the beginning. And I was in a room, and I was talking to someone. She was a psychiatrist, psychologist person. I don't know the difference. Shrink. She was a shrink person, not to be politically incorrect, but she was a shrink. And she asked me a question. She said, so how do you feel when other people ask you for help? How do you feel like when you help other people? I was like, I feel awesome. It's great. I'm like, it's the best thing ever. Whatever. She was like, well, why are you robbing other people of that opportunity?
Oh, I love it.
I was like, I don't like you. We're not talking anymore. You're not invited. So yeah, I'm like, so then I had to be brave enough to ask other people for help.
Well, and I love
still
that
don't
you
like
said
it. But yeah.
It doesn't necessarily, may stay uncomfortable. But I will say this, yes, it takes bravery to step into that. How are the rewards?
Awesome.
Yeah, it's huge reward, right? And that is where the healing is. That is where true connection is, where good relationship. I mean, it is so contrary, all of that stuff we do to protect ourselves. And I love that you were just directly asked that question, because that is something, and it's funny, like I thought I've done a lot of work, a lot of personal development, a lot of healing, all kinds of healing. And about 5.5 years ago, I broke my right shoulder. I'm right hand dominant. I had just built the place I'm living in now. I had just brought my horses home and I was had to take care of them. Again, been single 20 years post-divorce, pretty independent. To me, there was a stake in the ground, like you were brave, I was independent. And that experience, somehow, all the work I had done, just things lined up where I finally understood. It wasn't about that story of like being a burden to somebody or, guilting them, whatever I probably had a million stories around it, but the gift of allowing others to support us as we enjoy doing for other people. Right. It's so, but we all have some form of that story.
Yeah.
And so I love that you brought that up, because again, like our lives couldn't have been more different, but at the same, there's these threads that
you've never been to combat. You've never gone over.
Well, have you met my ex-husband? I'm not sure.
We could trade stories, I'm sure.
We have chatted. We don't need to chat about that on air, but no, I have not experienced combat. And funny enough, I didn't make it through buds. I don't know why. Yeah, really weird. I've been to Coronado. Does that count?
Totally, 100%.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right?
So yeah, I mean, that's where it happens.
But this is, the juiciest part of the conversation, I think, is the part that people need to hear. And it's probably the part where people are like, I'm done listening now. This feels uncomfortable. Lean into that discomfort, be brave, right. Be bold. But the whatever the fears are around dropping that shield, the rewards are exponential.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I literally could not imagine the things that I have and experience in my life now. And I know none of them would be here without having dropped my shield. And then maybe that's part of the dance. I probably you lower it a little bit, you put it back up, because
right, yeah,
decades.
It's scary. Oh my God, it's scary.
Safe,
Right. But
that is where the true healing is hiding. So I love that. How can people find you? So, Naked Warrior, the CBD products are, again, amazing. Yes, personal endorsement. They're me. And I've been using CBD for a long time, high quality CBD. What you're doing. And I have to add this part too. I'm somebody who's always shied away from something like a gummy or a chewable because ingredients are always nasty and dirty.
Right.
and people who know me are like, it's nothing. I eat those. They're your quality is, but then, how can people learn more about you? Like, and we'll have all your links and things, but I know I listen to podcasts when I'm on the go. So I want you to verbally tell us the best place to find you if people want to learn more.
I think for CBD, for Naked Warrior Recovery, you can go to nakedwarriorrecovery.com. But if you don't want to write naked into your search engine, you can write NW-recovery.
I wondered.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, oh, maybe people don't want to write naked into their thing.
Or if they misspell something, who knows what they're going to find. Who knows
what's good? Yeah, exactly. So it's NW-recovery, because if you go to NW Recovery, it's like Northwestern Rehab or something like that. I don't remember. I was like, okay, so it's NW-recovery or Naked Warrior Recovery for CBD. If you want to learn more about 5 SEAL Secrets, go to 5sealsecrets.com, the number 5sealsecrets.com. Put your name and email on there. I'll send you it's a PDF. It's about 7 or 8 pages of, really kind of breaking down what Naked really stands for, how you can implement it into your life. And, I think I'm most active social media wise on Instagram. I am getting ready to launch my own podcast.
Woo!
It's funny. I'm struggling on whether to call it the Naked Warrior podcast or the 5 SEAL Secrets podcast. So it's like weird little things like that. Like which way do I go? I don't know. So or I'm working on that. It doesn't matter really what I call it, as long as I just produce good content. Yeah.
Don't let that be the excuse for not getting it out there.
It's just. Yeah. Some of it's like, oh my God, what if I say something dumb? Like, you stop being a baby. It's time to get naked.
Done how many?
Let's roll. Yeah, exactly.
So, yes. and I love that, again, at this point in the conversation for listeners many probably would have been like, why would I go to 5 SEAL Secrets? That's so, but now you guys understand, why William's here, and I get that PDF, get that resource, because this is work we all have to do. And it's ongoing work, because the shields do creep back up if we're not careful.
Yes, they do. Yeah. It's so we're always done. Working on it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Always moving forward. Always. Yeah. And doing, being scared. That's okay. Fear's okay. It's what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Do you let it control you, or do you control it?
I like that. Sound like a Navy SEAL. We always wrap with one step listeners can take today to start to move the needle in their health. And health could be that, anything. So
I would say I like this analogy. So I like making bold adjustments. So, and what I mean by that is, when I was teaching sniper school and I went back to the platoons, since I was the senior sniper on the team, or in the platoon, or the task unit, whichever group I was a part of at the time, every time we started, we would go deploy, we'd come back, we would maybe go to some schools, and then we'd start our workup again, maybe get new rifles, new guns. We'd have to sight them in, or, we'd have leadership that would, they would have like a tour of desk time, and then they'd show back up in the platoon and not really know the best way to sight in their weapon. You would not think that Navy SEALs would have a hard time with that. Some do. And so we would be out there in the range, and guys were, and I could recognize them very quickly. Even guys showing up to sniper school, or they would get new guns, and we would teach them how to sight their guns in and things like that, their rifles in. And what would generally happen is they would be shooting at the target. They have the bullseye, and their impacts are hitting over here. And they would make these minor adjustments, small adjustments, and it didn't seem like their impacts were ever really moving. And so I would see this happening, and they would think that their gun was broken, or their scope was broken, or something was not working properly.
Sounds like me. This sight is off. Yeah.
This is not. It's not. I swear it's not me. I'm like, okay. So I would say, can I see your gun? And I would make these just unreasonable adjustments to their optic, and they were like, dude, I think you broke my, I'm like, just do me a favor and take a few shots. Just give me 3 rounds on paper. See where impacts are. And so what would happen is their impacts would move across the paper, past the bullseye, but it would actually be very close to the bullseye, like much closer than what they were making these small adjustments.
Right.
So then they could make the small adjustments into the bullseye, but they had to make these almost like the wrong thing, almost like doing the wrong thing, making the wrong adjustment to actually move, like almost do the opposite of what's correct. So when you're stuck or you're struggling or whatever, sometimes the right thing to do is just to make bold adjustments in the direction where you maybe think that you shouldn't be going. Go in that direction and see what happens, and then make minor adjustments to get yourself on target where you need to be.
I love that. And that is, definitely not one that we've heard before. And it makes so much sense. It really does. I see, we talk a lot about, small steps leading to big change, but I love this as well, because sometimes people hear that and they're doing what they think they should do. I've heard I should do this and I've been doing it and I don't notice any, and so I love and it may not, it doesn't necessarily have to do with food or, any of the things, but it also
it totally can be. I mean,
it can be. No, that's what I'm saying.
You look at the like old school food pyramid and
right.
Carbs and fats and proteins and whatever. And lots of people, and not true for everyone, but lots of people, switch over to like a ketogenic diet.
Right.
Lots of fats.
Or at least paleo.
Very few
so
carbs.
We're getting rid of that big grain.
Right.
Band.
It's something.
Anybody listening is not thriving.
And like moving in that direction, which is like, what you're like, what? That's like,
right.
That's not what I like. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Is it?
Or right.
Right. So, so for lots of people, that's like that's a bold adjustment. That's a big step in the wrong direction.
Right.
So just kind of like thinking about it like that, like if you've already like moved in that direction, you're like, oh, of course it is. But people who haven't, it's a big step for them to go in that sort of that direction. Just using that as an example. That's
the example they hear from me all the time, because in addition to the things I was eating that were causing inflammation, I grew up low fat. And so when I went keto was a huge part of my healing journey. It's not the answer for everybody, but for me, my body was so fat deprived, and I learned and I read, and I would gag the fat down. Like, it felt so wrong. And it was a big, bold step, and it, like a light switch, it just flipped my brain back on and helped my pain. And so I love that, it doesn't mean like go out and eat 10 Big Macs, because, William said be bold.
Right. Yeah. Like in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or go try it and like see how you feel.
And see how crappy you feel.
Shit.
Exactly.
Maybe I shouldn't do that ever. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. Well, William, that I could talk to you for hours, but we're gonna get you on your way so you can attend to your other commitments. I'm so grateful that you joined us today. You gave so much value, and for listeners, like, seriously, find him, whether it's on social, website, get the PDF, try the products. You will be surprised. So who knew,
thank you very much.
A Navy SEAL could really help us all heal. I love it.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Bold adjustments, big steps.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode, at least almost as much as I did. And if you're not already, hop on over to Instagram, follow me at julie.michelson, and you can find William there too.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. helping you take your power back.